Mike Bettis is up there in the Naples area. Mike, you're out there in the yachts, out there in the boat, and the docks there. What about surge issues in your area? Have you seen the water come up because of the fact that you were on the other side of the storm?
We're talking about getting surge from the bay side. That's what we're seeing here as well. We've generally had an offshore wind. No concern whatsoever for surge off the Gulf, but Naples, the city of Naples, sits in between the Gulf of Mexico and Naples Bay. We've actually had some water rise on Naples Bay, and some of those waves crashing over some of the break walls and some of the parking lots and sidewalks. What that means is we're now starting to see some flooding in a few areas. So we've seen in some of the parking lots knee-deep water, and that water needs some place to go. And where does it go? It goes right into the streets. And so many of the areas that are low-lying here in Naples are going to be underwater. We're already seeing that here in the pre-dawn hours. So multiple facets to this storm right now. We've been able to get out there this morning and kind of take a look at what's been going on. Wind damage for sure. We've had some trees that have been down, the palm trees that line some of the shopping areas. We've also had some lights that have been down, but flooding has been a problem for us, and a lot of spray coming over Naples Bay right now with the water level rise there and getting some surge at this point. So that at this point is going to want to be one of the primary concerns. Also keep in mind that over the past couple of hours it has rained very hard here in Naples, and so we've had quite a bit of rain in addition to the surge. And so there are going to be some locations very close to the Bay Area. So if you live in a home or an apartment very near the Bay, monitor those water levels. Keep in mind that it could be rising, and at times rising very rapidly here this morning. It's something definitely that we want to keep in mind as the sun rises and we get a little bit of daylight this morning. Obviously, we anticipate seeing more damage across the area. We've seen a lot of signs on hotels, on restaurants that have been damaged. So that is going to be, I think, very typical of the kind of damage that we see in this area. We're now starting to see our winds shift just a little bit. Primarily, they've been out of the east, but I've been watching the boat behind me, and it has a flag on it. That flag is now starting to shift a little bit more toward the south, more of a south wind. So we're going to see them swirl a bit because we're basically on that dividing line between the eye wall and the eye. So we anticipate a bit of a swirl to that wind, and then eventually once the center of the storm passes by us, we anticipate more of a northerly and then a westerly component to the wind, and then that may bring in a slight storm surge off of the Gulf of Mexico. But at that point it'll be, we believe, a little bit weaker, and it's rapidly moving to the east, the entire storm itself. So hopefully we'll be able to minimize off the Gulf of Mexico. Conditions here, Heather and Marshall, in the pre-dawn hours as Wilma has made landfall. The biggest concern we believe right now in the Naples area is for flooding and some surge off of Naples Bay. Back to you in the Weather Channel studios.
All right, thanks. That's Mike Bettis from Naples, Florida.
And, you know, we want to show you some pictures from Pompano Beach, Florida. Hurricane Wilma's winds pulled at palm trees and whipped up sand from the beach. You can see it just shooting across the parking lot. The Category 3 storm made landfall at 6:30 Eastern Time this morning.
We've got you covered here at the Weather Channel with commercial-free the next couple of hours to keep you updated on this hurricane. Even Dr. Greg Forbes is here. He's going to have an update on severe weather for you. But right now, Dr. Steve Lyons.
And Steve, as we look at this system, who's going to get the worst of it next?
Okay.
Well, right now, it looks like the eye is going to come right over the North Miami, Palm Beach area, Fort Lauderdale area over the next hour or so. And that eye wall is going to cause some significant damage. National Weather Service has just reported a wind gust of 87 miles per hour in Miami. I live down there. I had one of those screens on my pool in the backyard. That's the type of wind in the gust, just 87 miles per hour, that can take one of those pool screens down. We're expecting the winds to be much stronger than that when the circulation gets closer. So Miami, Palm Beaches, Fort Lauderdale, the next few hours, look at the eye coming right towards you, and that's going to mean some very strong winds and some significant damage to those weaker type structures, and that includes those pool screens, and a lot of trees are going to go down, and of course the power is going to be out. In the meantime, over here in the Naples area, the wind is still offshore, so the surge has not been there except inside the bays and the estuaries. The surge has been down here in the Everglades, where pretty much no one lives, particularly Cape Sable, and of course down here in Key West we've had some significant surge as well. Once the system moves toward Miami, Fort Lauderdale, because the wind's going to be blowing offshore on the south side, and the north side is going to be a brief onshore blow. We don't expect a huge water rise there. It's primarily going to be a wind event in this area, and it's going to last probably only 3 to 4 hours, and it's going to happen probably while you can see it because the sun's going to be coming up here shortly. So power outages and the potential for some structure damage from falling trees and some structure damage from the wind directly from a Category 3 hurricane. And when we look at the radar here, you'll see something that's a little bit reassuring in just a second. But you can see right here the surge 12 to 15 feet in an area that's fairly uninhabited. Up farther to the north, not too bad because the wind has been primarily offshore. Down in the Keys, 5 to 8 feet. And offshore the Miami area, we don't expect too much of a water problem. It's primarily going to be a wind problem and not too much of a rain problem. Now let's look at the circulation here moving onshore. We don't expect it to deviate much at all from its current track, blowing right across the Florida Peninsula and then coming offshore with this big trough of low pressure. There's a cold front that's come all the way down, and it's parked just to the north of the circulation, and it's going to basically spin like a yo-yo right up that front acting like the yo-yo string and coming up toward the northeastern United States. We could see some problems up there over the next 36 hours as well. But by the time that happens, this will be an extratropical cyclone, but a very powerful one that could cause some strong winds there. So here's our projected path right over the Miami, Fort Lauderdale, Palm Beach area over the next couple of hours. Keep in mind that wind is always stronger in the higher elevation. So if you live in a high-rise and you don't have shutters on the windows and those windows aren't certified for high winds, you may need to move into an interior area away from those windows over the next few hours. Let's get back to the studio with Heather and Marshall now.